On November 13, 2005, the wrestling world lost someone who entertained us for many years and still had many years left. Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero, on the date of his death, had a triple threat match between himself, Batista, and Randy Orton. Was supposed to take place to air the following episode of SmackDown for the World Heavyweight Championship, in which Guerrero would have been booked to win the title, which would have been a dream match of a dream match. Eddie Guerrero will be your world champion and will be in the main event at WrestleMania 22. Who he would have been facing? None other than the showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania himself, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. What are your thoughts? Would you want to see this? And how would you book the outcome?
Hell yeah, I want to see that. I definitely want to see that. I wish we could have seen that match. And we're about to find out how Andre the Savage will book that match. Let's go.
Yep.
All right, Andre, go ahead.
So we know right off the bat that this was so that Batista could take time off because he was dealing with a lot of injuries, back injuries, tricep problems. Before he tore them, he had to get them taken care of.
Right.
But Eddie's death caused him to wrestle injured. As a result, Dave Batista tore his, I don't know if it was his biceps or his triceps, but he tore them and had to relinquish the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown, where Kurt Angle won the title.
Mm-hmm.
That would mean that somebody else would have joined Team SmackDown in place of Eddie. And that ended up going to, I think,
Randy Orton.
So Randy Orton and Taker had to put their rivalry on pause so that they can have their match at Armageddon. Because I think originally was like, oh, it's how many years since Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series. You know, something about the anniversary that would have ended the rivalry then instead of Armageddon. So Eddie dying changed everything, even the plans for WrestleMania 22, which would have been Batista versus Randy.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping Eddie alive continues all those plans. So you have Eddie joining Team SmackDown as the world champion, as the captain, and HBK as the captain of Team Raw still. So Eddie, Ray, Bobby Lashley. Who else was on that team?
Batista. So
obviously you can't count Batista because of
injury.
Yeah. But Batista was the other guy in the group.
So I think you still could have pulled off that injury angle that Kane and Big Show choke slammed him through the roof of that car.
Yeah.
So that would have sidelined Batista and forced you to put Randy Orton in the match. Mm-hmm. Randy Orton and HBK have their own rivalry going on, and Eddie is still trying to convince Randy, I'm the captain.
Right.
I'm the world. If you remember, I pinned you to become the world champion. So I'm the leader. So while there's tension going on the SmackDown team, HBK is taking advantage of that, who has his own rivalry built up already with Vince. That doesn't start till after Survivor Series, but he starts planting the seeds when he talks about Bret Hart and all that.
Right. Yeah.
That segment they had on Raw. So then you have a backstage segment between Eddie and Vince. Vince congratulating Eddie on being the World Heavyweight Champion again, kind of like how he congratulated him behind the scenes at not WrestleMania, No Way Out.
Right.
So they have that real life on screen instead of behind the scenes hug. Congratulating him, being proud of him, being the world champion, being a 2-time Mexican world champion. And he says, I have a problem with Shawn.
All right.
And, I know you used to, be real famous with the ladies, right? The mamacitas, right? I need you to convince Shawn to come back to the old Shawn Michaels. It's like, it worked real well. And then suddenly he decides to be this righteous man, this man of God. And that pisses off Eddie because in real life, so is he.
Yeah.
So he's like, Vince, I see what you're trying to do. I say, uh, I have my own battles with addiction. That's why I turned to God too. And then Vince is like, well, yeah, but this is different.
Right.
Shawn's explaining that what he did in the past was different. You redeemed yourself. That's why you got hired back.
I like that.
So he kind of uses their own spiritual walk as something to put them against each other.
Right.
And then
because that was the original feud.
And then you still have them going like, I say, I know what Vince is trying to do, but you and I have our own darkness, and that's why we turn to him. But of course, they can't say God. They can't say because of the FCC. They can't.
Right.
You have the networks, and then you also have Vince, who doesn't like talking about God. So they have to be.
Unless you say
discreet.
like
they have to be discreet about it. The way how
Yeah.
they talk about faith.
Unless you say like how Vince says it, all
Right.
aggressive and all that.
So in the meantime, they're trying to be civil, but they're like, oh, just remember, I say, I lie, I cheat, and I steal, and he still forgives me. So now you got them doing that against each other, right? And Vince gets involved in the Survivor Series match. This is how you start the build even more.
Ooh.
Eddie considers doing what he did to Kurt, untying his shoelace, trying to steal the win. It's them two at the end. It's not Randy and Shawn. It's Eddie and Shawn. After Randy Orton gets pinned by Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels finally gets his pin back on Randy from 2003, and he RKO's HBK on the way out and Eddie because Eddie threw that "I beat you for the world title" thing at him.
Ooh.
So he leaves it open for whichever team to win. Of course, you got Bischoff and both Bischoff and Teddy at ringside. And out comes Vince. You hear the "No Chance in Hell" theme. And he comes strutting down to the ring. Just as pissed off as he was at Royal Rumble 2006 when Shawn eliminated the guys that were promising to eliminate him.
Oh, okay.
So he starts strutting down to the ring angry. And he offers Eddie the chair. And Eddie thinks about it, but then he's like, no. He throws the chair out.
Damn, okay.
And as he throws the chair out, the ref sees him. Like, the ref doesn't know that they're both knocked out because at some point after Randy Orton gets kicked out for the win or the elimination, I don't know. And it's Little H, so maybe he gets knocked out somehow. But he sees the chair that Eddie just threw out, and he's like, "Did you just hit Shawn with the chair?" And it's Eddie like, "No, I know you had no." I said no.
He does his old Eddie.
Shawn takes advantage and rolls up Eddie. Eddie reverses it, goes for the Three Amigos, goes for the frog splash. Shawn moves out of the way, does the sweet chin music, and he goes for the pin, and Vince gets on the apron, distracting the ref. Eddie goes for a roll-up, and then HBK, and he tries to pull the tights. HBK reverses on him and uses the ropes for leverage. Ref doesn't see it. Shawn Raw wins, not SmackDown.
Oh. Who was it? SmackDown wins, right? So this one, Raw wins.
At this point, Raw wins.
Okay.
And Eddie thinks...
And we're just at Survivor Series. We haven't even got to WrestleMania yet.
Eddie thinks that Shawn and Vince conspired against him. So it starts the little rivalry. He says, "Ese, that was a good one." Then challenges them to Armageddon. But Shawn refuses, says, "No, that's a SmackDown show."
Okay.
So then that's when Randy comes out and says, "We only lost because of you. Had I won," and they starts a little rivalry with Randy. And Vince says, "Well, Eddie, it seems you have an issue with Shawn. You have an issue with Randy. You have an issue with me. So let's make this a special guest referee match. You versus Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship."
Okay.
with Shawn Michaels as the referee.
Interesting.
Shawn calls the match down the middle, just like he did at SummerSlam. Eddie wins, but at some point, Shawn hesitates to pin. You got the rivalry going to the point where he's hesitating to pin the same way he hesitated for that 3 count at SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie realizes it. He sees that, and he calls him out, sets up a match between him and Shawn at the Royal Rumble, but Randy's still involved.
Okay.
Because he knows that he could have actually won at some point, and you let Dave Bautista win the Rumble because all that time he took off, he's able to heal. He's able to have enough energy to go to WrestleMania. Whether or not he wins a title or strips himself, or makes at least makes it to WrestleMania. You get the match you should have gotten that you originally planned. So you don't have to have Kurt. I mean, as much as I wanted to see Kurt in the main event, he already had that moment before he did. He didn't really need it unless he was going to win the main event title.
Yeah. He didn't need another title defense. He needed to actually win a title at WrestleMania.
So it gives you the opportunity to have a better rivalry for Kurt at WrestleMania. Randy Orton wins after pitting Eddie, and now the focus is between Shawn and Eddie.
Okay.
Vince got in the ear and maybe make him the referee, which then later builds up Shawn versus Vince at a later time.
I agree with that. I feel like it was a great match, but
Eddie
didn't need to be it.
Let Eddie get the win. He had those tainted victories through Shawn. He has the title loss at the Rumble. Let him get the win. You don't have to have the world title in the match anymore. It was just a focus of taking something away from Eddie so that the rivalry even more. And you still get to have the Batista versus Randy at WrestleMania 22, which probably would have been better hyped then than it was at WrestleMania 30.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Batista was hot. Randy Orton was the biggest heel on SmackDown. Yeah, that leaves Kurt off, but then maybe they could have Kurt versus Bradshaw instead of Bradshaw versus Benoit, which I think would have been a better rivalry too.
Yeah, I agree with that. Or Kurt Angle and Bobby Lashley.
Or even instead of Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry at the Rumble, Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry at WrestleMania. Or Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's going to be a different episode for WrestleMania 22.
It opened up more opportunities for Kurt if he didn't have a lot of good main event style opportunities if he doesn't get the title at WrestleMania.
Right. So Eddie drops the title at the Royal Rumble. The feud continues. So WrestleMania 22 for your fantasy booking is Eddie Guerrero versus Shawn Michaels, and somewhat similar to The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels.
All the shoots are going to come out. Everything about their past, all about their addictions, all about their faith. That's all going to be laid out.
Yeah, because that was the original story for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I like that because you have that world title, and it gives that Eddie, because it gives us that something similar to The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, because we thought it was going to be for the world heavyweight title this time. For WrestleMania 26, but then Shawn Michaels caused Taker the title.
Moment, I don't think Shane would be a heel in that situation because Shane, from a personal standpoint, from behind the scenes, is friends with these two dudes. And the fact that Vince is trying to bring up some sinfully, dastardly, demon-like thing between these two guys in the rivalry is why Shane wouldn't be involved in the sense like the way he was with Shawn versus Vince. So he maybe Vince, while being the referee, he's like, trying to get his dad to call the match down the line. So we don't have to have a referee run in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So kind of like trying to have more his dad be like, I don't like what you're doing. I think you should back off, or I know what you're doing.
Yep.
Kind of thing. But Vince is playing that, I don't know what you're talking about, son. I'm just trying to book this great main event.
Right.
So I like that. For me, somewhat similar to yours. Um, for me, I would have the world title. Uh, the only thing is, I would add Kurt Angle into the mix if able to. If I'm able to add Kurt Angle to that mix, you know why I would do it? Just to piss the fans off.
Ooh, and I
Wow.
didn't think about this too.
To piss off the fans, because imagine that.
Kurt's two best WrestleMania matches. Two of his three best WrestleMania matches are with those guys.
You beat me
Actually,
to it.
I'm sorry, two of his four. His best four are obviously Benoit. Ah shit.
Yeah.
His name, Lesnar, Shawn, and Eddie. Those were his best matches probably in his career.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So add Shawn Michaels into that mix. You have a hell of a triple threat match. And also it's just to piss off the fans because you'd be like, bro, what are you doing? Why are you adding Kurt Angle to the mix? You know? So
Mhm.
but obviously it's gonna be a hell of a match. I don't know. Maybe people would be like, "Damn, I'm glad this is happening," or maybe people would get pissed off. For the world heavyweight title, if it's gonna involve the world heavyweight title, Shawn Michaels wins the Royal Rumble. I would have Eddie Guerrero win the world title if it was going based on the triple threat. So have him have to continue his feud with Randy Orton. Just that's it. Just have his feud with Randy Orton leading up to WrestleMania. Um, and then Shawn Michaels versus Eddie Guerrero WrestleMania, and I will have Eddie Guerrero win as well. I will have him retain the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, Andre, fortunately, because you're not gonna have the World Heavyweight title for your fantasy booking, but if you had to have the World Heavyweight title, there's no way around it. Is it closing the WrestleMania? Mine isn't.
As
Even
much
if
as I, as much
mine
as I want,
isn't.
as much as I want Eddie to have that main event moment, I don't think, because I think he would be overshadowed by John Cena, who they were trying to put in the main event, and
Mhm.
it's Triple H. Remember that was going to still happen regardless. I think that was in the books from the beginning, from the moment that Triple H attacked Ric Flair, and he had that everybody giving him that dirty ass look as he walked backstage,
Right.
and then he had that run in with Cena. From that point on, I realized that that was going to be the main event of WrestleMania.
And it
So
should. It should. It needed
because
to be.
Cena is the top guy of the brand, that's the reason why I don't think Eddie was ever going to close the show.
Yeah. No, for me, he was never going. Even if it was booked my way, it'd be like, oh no, he's not gonna main event WrestleMania. Like you said, I feel like he does deserve that moment, but that moment was he should have won the Royal Rumble and then faced Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. That should have been his moment, but instead, I think he won it. He did won a Royal Rumble. He
He
won a
always got
Royal
he always got overshadowed by a better story. He had Ben
because he wasn't a superstar.
WrestleMania 20 was a better story because of Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman made that third person worse, their life worse. He made that obstacle and climb to the Rumble. The win for the Rumble, he made that climb to the World Championship even better by the way he kept keeping them down. From all
Mm,
those segments on SmackDown with Brock, all those segments with Kurt on for the World Championship on SmackDown, that made that triple threat more meaningful than the Kurt versus Eddie match. So that's why WrestleMania 20 was not going to be Eddie's time to shine. Same thing with WrestleMania 21. That Eddie versus Ray would never close, even if it was for the World Championship, because JBL versus Cena was going to be bigger because you were going to have finally somebody take a title away from JBL. You were going to
yeah,
finally have somebody dethrone Triple H. Those two stories, because of evolution, were always going to be bigger than Eddie versus Ray. Same thing, WrestleMania 22. No matter how big of a name that HBK is, John Cena's name was bigger. So was
yeah,
Triple H's pull. So that was always going to close WrestleMania. Um, unless he was to face Taker, that would have been his only shot to have maybe main evented.
Okay. Yeah.
WrestleMania. And it's not because of Eddie's name is not big enough name. It's a big household name, but his name got bigger when he died.
Yeah.
That's the sad truth of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's facts. Because Eddie Guerrero was more of a wrestler and all that. He was a household name, but when it came to arenas and stuff like that, Eddie draws live events. Cena draws arenas and all that stuff.
And Eddie's title reign was also tainted by everything that happened after Brock left. Brock left, so guess what? We're gonna put the title on Eddie.
Mm.
Oh, Brock wants to leave. Okay, we're gonna put the title on Eddie. Um, Brock left. Okay, who do we have for Eddie to face besides everybody in a SmackDown tournament on one show? And then JBL, because
Yeah.
Cena's too green right now to face the champion.
But at least they built them
And,
up.
and Kurt Angle's injured for a rematch.
Right. And then Kurt Angle and JBL is a draw, but just not yet. It was you got to build up JBL.